Chapter 7, Step 4, Title Review. Do a background check on your shortlist. Imagine you're searching for someone to do an extremely important job in your life. Maybe you need a nanny for your children or a financial advisor. Perhaps you're choosing a surgeon to perform a critical medical procedure. Clearly, this is a decision you really want to get right. As your list of candidates shortens, you feel the pressure rising. The stakes are high. What do? Like everyone else, you do your homework. You do a background check on the final candidates. You call their references. You look them up online. You verify their bona fides. It's the last step to ensure you haven't missed anything along the way. Doing due diligence before making important decisions is what lets you sleep well at night once you've made your choice. Buying at auction is no different. The stakes, your hard-earned cash, can be high. Investing in a property with problems is like hiring a person with problems. At some point, you're going to pay a steep price. To mitigate the risks, real estate comes with its own type of background check called a title review. It's the last step in our process. After you've narrowed your initial list of many possible foreclosure properties down to a handful of good prospects, title check is your final piece of due diligence before you head to the courthouse to bid. What is title? If you want to sell the pair of shoes you bought at the mall to a friend, no one really cares. You can sell them, give them away, or throw them out anytime you like. It's a simple transaction. Not so with real estate. High-value assets like houses and cars have an extra layer of complexity when they're bought and sold. It's called title, which is a fancy name for someone's rights to a piece of property. Having title gives you the legal right to do with a house what you would with a smaller asset, like the pair of Converse hanging around your closet. Clear title lets you sell, reassign, or finance a piece of real estate. It puts it fully under your control within the limits of the law. That's the kind of reassurance we're looking for when we go to auction. Lien on me. Here's where things get tricky. Title in real estate is particularly important because homes are often collateralized. They're used as a way to borrow money or extend services. The most common way of collateralizing real estate is through a mortgage. When you borrow money to buy a house, the bank stakes a claim against your property in the form of a lien. If you don't pay the mortgage, the rights provided by the lien allow the bank to take possession of your home and sell it to clear the debt. The exact process we described earlier that led poor Dave to foreclosure. A mortgage, however, isn't the only way that a lien or other encumbrance can be connected to real estate. Property taxes, contractor work, lawsuits, and more can all result in claims against a property, dividing and complicating the title. Title, then, isn't just a piece of paper. It's the collection of rights that you, as the new property owner, are entitled to. Without clear title, you're exposed to higher risk and may be limited in what you can do with your property in the future. The auction difference. When you buy a house the typical way, through a licensed real estate agent on the open market, there is an established process for sorting out title and making sure you fully understand your rights and obligations. In general, after a seller accepts your offer to buy their home, the real estate agent retains a title search company to go through the necessary public records and look for liens and other complications related to the property. They're watching closely for anything that might impact your right to manage your asset as you see fit. A title search might uncover any number of things, such as unpaid property taxes, other financial liens, pending lawsuits, boundary or border issues, such as a fence or building that encroaches on a neighboring property, complications with estates and heirs, mistakes and improper paperwork errors with previous title transfers. The title company examines all of these and provides you with a tidy little report that sums up the legal history of the property with respect to ownership, liens, taxes, and other possible encumbrances, and gives an exact legal description of the property. Any red flags will be clearly identified, plus you get title insurance, just in case they missed anything. It's all simple, clear, and gives everyone peace of mind for a small fee. Buying at auction, however, is a different story. The timelines of auctions generally mean that a title search company can help, but they won't guarantee their work. In most cases, there isn't enough time for them to do the in-depth digging required to offer title insurance. That, in turn, means it's usually not worth paying a title company fee for every property you want to bid on. It's a conundrum. Understanding title is critical, but the pros can't necessarily give you what you want. What to do? 3 ways to do title review. There are 3 ways to approach title review for the properties on your shortlist. There are pros and cons to each, but we have a recommended approach for your first time around. 1. Pay a title company. As mentioned, you can use a title company to review the auction properties you're interested in, but you won't get a guarantee. This isn't the same as a title report. It's a much lower cost version. We're not saying you should use a title company, more on that below, but you should consider this a buyer beware situation. Using a title company for an auction research role instead of a title report means you're A. paying someone to do a job that they don't necessarily have the time to do properly, and B. allowing them to do it with no guarantees. That certainly opens the door to a less than thorough job. The advantage, though, is cost. A regular title report can cost as much as $2,000, which would not be profitable for 50 houses per auction when you're hoping to buy just one. A limited review, on the other hand, costs $30 to $50. While the services of a title company are not free, their experts are the pros. The information you get from them, even if not guaranteed, is likely to be strong. 2. DIY. You can absolutely learn to do title review yourself, and that's what the rest of this chapter will focus on. On the plus side, you'll save a little money, but you'll pay a price in the time you're going to spend doing it. The real value in the DIY approach is twofold. First, you're going to get an education. You'll start to truly understand the liens and encumbrances and other possible challenges that can arise with title. The second, and arguably greater benefit, however, is that no one cares about title as much as you do. It is, after all, your money that's on the line at auction. 3. Hire or train someone to do it for you. The DIY approach also allows for a third option. Once you have a solid understanding of how to do a complete title review, you can teach someone else to do it in exactly the way you want it done. It's the best of both worlds. You're not doing all the work, but you're not handing the review over to someone who may not be incentivized to give you the best results. Where should you start? Our recommendation is to begin the same way we did. Do it yourself and pay a title company. We call it double coverage, and it's an approach that gives you some great advantages. You get to compare your results against the pros. Did you miss something? Comparing your title discoveries against those of a title company is a great way to find the holes in your search. When you stop seeing holes, you'll know you're getting good. No one cares like you do. Your due diligence, when your money is on the line, versus the due diligence of a title company that doesn't have to guarantee your results, is no contest, motivation-wise. You win hands down. Double coverage keeps you engaged, at least until you find someone you trust to help. You'll truly understand the properties you're looking at. Every property has a history, and some of them can be quite complicated. Properties change hands. They're financed and refinanced. People get sued. People die, and their heirs fight with each other and fight with the neighbors. Title research tells you the story of the asset you're buying, and that makes you a better investor. Double coverage means you have a pro to help when you encounter weird cases and complications. In summary, title research matters, and there's a lot of value in learning to do it yourself. The good news is this: it's not that hard to learn. Much like buying at auction, successful title research is a process. All you need to do is follow the correct steps. In this chapter, we'll show you our process for careful title research that ensures 3 things. Free and clear title. When you buy a property at auction, you want to be able to make smart decisions afterward. You want full control. You may want to sell the property. You may want to rent it or refinance it. Knowing that you have control over those decisions is critical. No nasty surprises. In the worst case scenario, you can lose all your money at auction by not doing your due diligence on title. Those bad surprises are painful to go through, and they're almost always expensive. Accurate bid pricing. Uncovering issues with title doesn't mean you shouldn't buy a property at auction. What it does mean is that you'll need to adjust your final calculations accordingly. Are there unpaid property taxes, for example? Those will need to be settled, and you'll want to take that amount into account. Good title review makes for good auction bidding. The task at hand: find and prioritize surviving title risks. Although we commonly speak of buying properties at auction and foreclosing on houses, that language isn't technically accurate. When you bid on the courthouse steps, what you're really trying to buy is a loan that someone has defaulted on. It's loans that are foreclosed on, not houses. All loans, however, are not created equal. In Chapter 1, we met Dave, who fell further and further behind on his home mortgage payments, until eventually his loan was foreclosed on, and his house was sold at auction. You know now that the reason the mortgage holder, the bank, was able to take Dave's house was because it registered a lien against the property. The lien gave the bank a legal interest in Dave's property. When Dave failed to pay, the bank used that legal stake in Dave's home to repossess it and sell it to an investor like you to recover their money. But here's where things get interesting. If you're going to start buying up loans at auction, remember, that's what you're doing because it's loans that are foreclosed on. You need to understand the loan you're buying. Why? Because there can be more than one lien against a property. From mortgage liens and mechanics liens to tax liens and beyond, the bank may not be the only one out there with an interest in a property. Not all liens are equal in priority. A first mortgage, for example, takes priority over a second. We like to buy first position loans. Not all liens survive foreclosure. Some obligations are erased when the property is sold at auction. Those we can ignore. Any registered claim involving the title of a property is something that can impact your profitability, and the job of title review is to find those claims and assess their impact. We've broken title review into 3 steps to make it easier. 1. Check for outstanding property taxes. This is relatively straightforward. Outstanding property taxes almost always have to be paid, so we like to sort that out first. 2. Find any encumbrances. I call these the L's: liens, lawsuits, and liabilities. This includes anything that might interfere with clear title or cost you extra money after auction. 3. Filter and prioritize your findings. Not every loan or liability will be your problem. Some will be extinguished when the house is auctioned. Some won't. And every lien will have a point in time in which it was recorded. These 3 steps allow you to find the potential problems with title and then sort those that will survive auction into priority sequence. A. Check for outstanding property taxes. Every homeowner pays taxes to their local government based on the value of their property. At least, they're supposed to. When someone stops paying their mortgage long enough to wind up in foreclosure, there's a solid chance they've stopped paying their property taxes too. That means many of the homes you'll bid on at auction will have back taxes owing. Those taxes will need to be paid by you if you successfully bid on the courthouse steps. While some liabilities vanish in foreclosure, keep listening, taxes aren't one of them. This isn't the end of the world. It's just part of the process. What's important is that you know about any taxes owing so you can add them to your calculations. Your first job is to find the online home of property tax records for the county you're interested in. Simply search using the name of the county and the words tax bill. This will usually give you a link to the online portal where you can search and pay for property taxes owing. Make sure the legal description of the record you're looking at matches the one on your spreadsheet. Each tract of land in a county gets a unique number called an assessor's parcel number, or APN. That number is used to identify a property for things like deeds, taxes, and title information. Records will often include the APN, and it makes for a good unique identifier. Some counties will ask if you're searching for secured or unsecured property. You want secured property, things like houses and land. Note that mobile homes are considered unsecured property. Look for any sign of unpaid taxes. They'll be indicated by phrases like delinquent tax amount or prior year taxes owing. Note that in some cases, there are both county taxes and city taxes. It's not common, but it does happen. And when it does, they're usually tracked separately. A quick way to check is to search online using the name of the city and the words tax bill. You can also double-check further by calling the county and city offices. If you've checked for outstanding taxes and done the rest of the title search that follows, and you're confident you want to bid on the property, there's a special line item on the bid sheet from the previous chapter for past due taxes. Some states and counties have foreclosure processes for overdue property taxes. When you see that the taxes are several years overdue, or there are signs of litigation for overdue taxes or previous tax foreclosures, you'll often need to contact the county to request further information to get the whole story. We often skip such properties altogether. Now is also a good time to add the annual tax amount to your spreadsheet if you haven't already. If you plan to rent the property or own it for any significant period before flipping it, you'll need the tax amount to properly calculate your expenses. B. Find the L's: liens, lawsuits, and liabilities. Property taxes are certainly not the only encumbrance on a property. We address them separately because A, they're easy to find, and B, they almost always must be paid. Outstanding property taxes tend to be straightforward. There are other types of liens, however. Here are the most common: First mortgages. This is the most common type of lien on residential property. Second and third mortgages. A borrower may turn to these for additional funds to buy or upgrade a home. Judgment liens. If a homeowner is sued and loses, the winning party may file a lien on the property. HOA and COA liens. Homeowner and condominium owner associations have the power to register liens too. Mechanics liens. Unpaid contractors, tradespeople, and suppliers of materials can register liens. IRS and tax liens. Unpaid taxes can lead to liens. UCC. A UCC lien filing or UCC filing is a notice lenders file when a personal or business loan is secured to an asset. It stands for Uniform Commercial Code, and it survives foreclosure. An example of a UCC would be for a water heater or water softener. That lien is attached to the water softener, so if the water softener is gone when you buy the house, you won't have to pay the lien. If the water softener is still there, you'll need to pay the lien before selling. Child support and alimony liens. The same goes for family obligations. Some liens are voluntary, like mortgages. You agree to them when you borrow the money. Some liens are involuntary, like tax and mechanics liens. They happen without your consent, but they're all very real. To see how these can stack up, let's go back to poor Dave. Imagine Dave has a first mortgage balance of $150,000. But he also secured a recent second mortgage for $50,000 from a different bank so he could build an addition. That second mortgage holder also registered a lien on the property. Here's what we have now. First mortgage, $150,000. Second mortgage, $50,000. However, as part of the renovation, Dave upgraded the HVAC system in his house, which cost $10,000. When Dave didn't pay promptly, the tradesman who did the work placed a mechanics lien on the property. Now Dave's situation looks like this. First mortgage, $150,000. Second mortgage, $50,000. Mechanics lien, $10,000. But it doesn't end there. Dave's in a lot of trouble. Dave also owes taxes to the IRS, and they've placed a lien on his property for $5,000. First mortgage, $150,000. Second mortgage, $50,000. Mechanics lien, $10,000. IRS lien, $5,000. When you see Dave's house on a list of properties scheduled for foreclosure, you don't know all this at first glance. You just know somebody is foreclosing on a loan that used Dave's house as collateral. That somebody wants their money back, and they're going to sell Dave's house to get it. As the person who might be interested in buying that house, you need to understand all the possible encumbrances on that property, this step, and then the survival and priority of those encumbrances, the next step. Which will still exist after foreclosure? And what's their priority? Who gets paid first? To do that, you need to visit the website of your old friend, the county clerk. Do a search by property and by owner name. Here's what you're looking for. Deeds. Changes owner of record. Deeds of trust. Loan on property. Subordination agreement. UCC filing. Order. Lis pendens. Tax lien. Mechanics lien. Reconveyance. This is a notice that a loan or lien has been paid off and is no longer valid. Subordination agreement. This is recorded when someone refinances a loan in first position but is keeping an old second loan. It says that even though the smaller second loan was recorded first, this is in a subordinate position to the more recent loan. Notice of action. This means there is a litigation pending with one of the property owners, and it should be looked at closely to see if it affects the property. Notice. This could mean anything. If hundreds of property owners are affected, then it's likely not an issue. But if fewer owners are affected, it may be worth looking at. Association lien. HOA liens are likely not an issue. Utility liens. FTL, or federal tax lien. These do not go away after foreclosure, so the full amount owed must be determined. Request for reconveyance. If this shares the same document number as the deed of trust, it's a hint that the deed of trust is a second lien, and we don't want to buy second liens. And really, any other sort of document too. Be on the lookout for any document you can find for that person and property to see whether there's something strange related to it. For properties with a long or troubled history, you may see a lot of documents. A loan could have been sold from one party to another. A mortgage could be renewed. A property could be severed or have its description changed. For each one that you find, you'll want to, first, verify that it's for the correct property using APN numbers, legal property descriptions, owner names, and loan numbers. Anything that ensures you're looking at the right property. Second, list each encumbrance and its filing date on a separate spreadsheet. Don't skip this part. You'll need it in the next step. Let's run through a sample title search for a property that I own. Remember, we're trying to figure out which loan is in first position and if there are any extra liens due. Early on, we already checked property taxes, so now we jump right into record search. We add all of the records from the county clerk into our spreadsheet in the order they were recorded. Then we look closer at the documents to see what they say. At first glance, it would look like there are 3 loans on the property, deeds of trust, and that the first position loan is the one that was recorded first. After reading all of the documents, we see there is only one unpaid loan on the property, and there aren't any other liens, lawsuits, or issues. Deed of trust is the first position, and is the only loan in this case. If a notice of trustee sale referenced that loan, it would be a safe title. If it referenced any other loan, it would not. Once you've listed all the encumbrances and their recording date, it's time to sort out which liens matter and how much. C. Filter and prioritize your findings. You should now have a list of registered documents related to the property with relevant filing dates. Your final task is to remove any liens that won't matter after foreclosure and sort the remaining ones in priority order. 1. Remove any lien that won't survive foreclosure. Let's check Dave's situation again. First mortgage, $150,000. Second mortgage, $50,000. Mechanics lien, $10,000. IRS lien, $5,000. Recall that not all liens are created equal. Some vanish when the house is sold in the courthouse steps. For example, here are the liens that generally do not survive foreclosure, so you don't need to worry about them. Remember that things do change over time and could vary from state to state, so please review your state's law and check out our resource page to see if there are updates to this section at biggerpockets.com/foreclosure bonus. HOA and ASM liens for unpaid HOA fees. State tax liens. Hospital liens. Mechanics liens, unless they predate the deed of trust. FTL, or federal tax liens. They only go away if you wait 120 days or pay them off before that. Here is a list of liens that do survive foreclosure. You'll need to plan to deal with them either through effort or cost or both. Order. Court order. Lis pendens. Active lawsuit restricting property rights. FTL or federal tax liens. They only go away if you wait 120 days or pay them off before that. Mechanics liens, if it predates deed of trust. UCC liens. In Dave's state, the mechanics lien will be wiped out after foreclosure. That's too bad for the contractor, but good news for you. You can strike that one off the list. That leaves just 3 liens. First mortgage, $150,000. Second mortgage, $50,000. IRS lien, $5,000. In many cases, a federal tax lien will disappear after 120 days. That's good news in the long run, and you can strike it. In the short term, if you want to sell the property, you're either going to have to wait 4 months or pay off the lien. If you want to bid on this property and flip it immediately, now would be a good time to add this amount to your bid sheet and adjust your maximum bid. 2. Prioritize the remaining liens. Let's check Dave's situation again. Let's assume we've added the IRS lien to our bid sheet, so we'll drop it off the list. First mortgage, $150,000. Second mortgage, $50,000. Dave's case, as tough as it is on Dave, is easy from a title perspective. There are just 2 major liens. If we check the dates, we can see that the first mortgage was indeed recorded a few years before the second. Now we can answer one final, critical question. Which loan are you buying? You now have a list of foreclosure surviving liens, sorted by their dates. Remember that loans are foreclosed on, not homes. So when we buy Dave's house at auction, we're really purchasing a loan. Our very last task, which will determine whether we want to bid on Dave's house, is to make sure we're buying the loan at the top of the list. Lien priority or position determines who gets paid first after a foreclosure sale. The general rule is that, other than property taxes, which almost always remain in first position, loans are prioritized in a first recorded, first paid sequence. Our rule is simple. We buy only first position loans. There are people who buy second position loans, but we aren't those people. What if, for example, it was the second mortgage holder who decided to exercise their claim to Dave's property because he hadn't paid them? If you buy that loan at auction, some of the ones that come after it will go away, but the first mortgage won't. That debt will still be owed. Foreclosure doesn't erase everything. If you buy Dave's house at auction and it turns out you've bought the loan in second position, then the debt for the first position loan and its priority lien, the first mortgage, is still there. To find out, check the foreclosure notice, which will specify the lender and the loan number. Now, compare it against your list. Where is it in the sequence? Lesson. Be sure you understand A, which loan you're buying, and B, where it falls in the pecking order. Subordination agreements. As you prowl the list of recorded documents for your property, you may see subordination agreements. They play an important role in getting your list of encumbrances in the correct order. Imagine you take a first mortgage to buy a home, then take a second mortgage to do a renovation, just like Dave. A few years later, you're still paying off both mortgages, but your first is due for renewal. When you renew your first, technically, it's a new mortgage and now falls behind the second mortgage in the pecking order. Banks don't like that, So a subordination agreement is used to legally say, hey, even though this loan happened after the other one, this is really the one that's in front. Make sure you review any subordination agreements to be certain you get your list in the right sequence. Lien survival versus loan survival. Foreclosure eliminates a number of liens in most states, but it certainly doesn't eliminate all debt. So although the lien may disappear, the loan may not, which does create the possibility that someone could still come after you as the new owner. Your best recourse here is to go to an expert for advice. Title déjà vu. By now, you've likely noticed that during the 5 steps, you keep revisiting resources you've been to before. You might be asking, why didn't I get this information while I was at the recorder's office last time? Remember that the purpose of each of the 5 steps in our process is to narrow down the number of properties you're considering at each step. Yes, you could have gathered title-relevant information while you were on the county clerk's website in step 1, but you would have had to review the documents for dozens of properties, many of which would never have made it through your filter. Why dig for title details on a property you don't have the budget for? Why pull the property tax records for a place that doesn't fit your skill set? It's a lot faster to revisit a property in order to dig a little deeper than it is to dig deeper on a long list of properties that are never going to make the cut. Disclaimer. Go to the pros. Title research can be complicated and time-consuming, but it's also non-negotiable. It has to happen if you want to manage your risk at auction. I have 2 pieces of advice. The first is to know that you'll get faster and better at it. Just like everything else, it simply takes a little time and effort. What starts as a struggle with an overwhelming list of documents in legalese soon becomes a quick and effortless task. That being said, it's wise to consider professional help when you're starting out. Consult a lawyer who specializes in real estate law and title, or find a title company that will do foreclosure title work. It's the best way to check your work and protect your investment. When you're new to title research, the double coverage approach can be very worthwhile. Title research pays off. Remember the first property we bought at auction? Not only was I panicking about handing all my money to someone who arrived by skateboard, but I was deeply unsettled by the fact that I was the only person bidding. No one seemed to want to touch the property during the auction. That, more than anything else, made me worry that I'd made a horrible mistake. Once we had a few auctions under our belt, however, I realized just why we'd had no competition at auction and got a great price as a result. At the time, the company providing foreclosure listings in the area had included the property on their list, but they indicated it was a second deed of trust that was being foreclosed on. That would have meant we'd be buying a loan in second position, which is not something we want to do. However, in doing my homework, I'd found the subordination agreement that showed the loan in default, the one we'd be buying, was actually in first position. Even though it wasn't the first loan by calendar date, it had been moved into first position by the subordination agreement. Had I not done the title research and been thorough about it, I would likely never have even shown up at auction. Instead, the extra legwork not only showed that this was a worthwhile property to bid on, but it gave me an advantage over the other bidders. The thorough title review not only kept us safe, it gave us an edge. It's time to get ready for auction. Let's review where we are in the 5-step process. So far, we've completed the first 4 steps. Step 1. Create or purchase a list of properties slated for auction. Step 2. Drive by those of interest to learn more. Step 3. Analyze the remaining desired properties to come up with a bid price. Step 4. Do a title review of any property you plan to bid on. If you've worked through these steps with a list of real properties, you'll notice that with each step, you're narrowing your list of potential properties, effectively focusing on those that fit your unique interests, skills, risk tolerance, and budget. Title review is the last step before the final, exciting step of going to auction. Any property that still remains on your list is likely to be something you'll at least hope to bid on. Up to this point, you may have done much of the legwork on your own, with only limited contact with other people. Now it's time to dive right into auction day, when all your hard work can pay off.